Hello again, and this will be Angle versus Benoit from Royal Rumble 2003. Another famous match that I watched in an attempt to see if it lives up to the hype that it gets. In this one, there's not a lot of what I might call disguising build. In that, by that I mean there's not a lot of build and storyline behind it. From a character perspective, definitely Angle was probably at his strongest here. I mean, he had the championship, he had two sidekicks, he had the general manager in his corner. He definitely had that mystique around him that makes people believe in him. But this match, no question about it, gets loved because of the work in the match and not what's around it. But I will say this, and this will give away completely how I feel about this, but let's go for it anyway. If you like what you saw from Angle versus Benoit in terms of submission wrestling, then you really need to be watching Shoot Style from Japan, because Angle Benoit is quite inferior when stacked up against some of the absolute best stuff from that style. And that's coming from the perspective of a guy who there are famous shoot style matches that I don't get into as much. I mean, I enjoy them, but I don't really count them among the best matches ever or anything. But there are some famous ones that I do really enjoy a lot. So it's a mixed bag for me. But if you're going to praise Angle Benoit for their submission wrestling or their mat work, I would really recommend seeking that stuff out, because there's a good chance that you'll fall in love with it. You can ask me about it, or better yet, you can ask Daniel, or you can post in our forum and get multiple perspectives. So that was my way of easing in the opinion of I don't think this match is that great, and it's not because their mat work isn't the best. Because like I said, I'm not a shoot style devotee to the degree of some that I have seen. If a match has a very exciting layout, I will get entertainment from the most basic technique you can imagine. And make no mistake, despite all I've said up to now, Angle and Benoit are definitely a big step up from the most basic technique. I would never ever suggest otherwise. But because of the fact that they're not the best at it, and because of the spot fest format that we're dealing with here, there's a ceiling. This is only going to be so good. This wasn't a match that tried to be a 5-star classic and a bunch of negatives prevented it from reaching that. This was a match that succeeded in being a fun spot fest with some good submission work thrown in there, and that was going to be entertaining, but there's a ceiling. That's how I feel about this one. It's much the same thing with the WrestleMania 20 main event. It succeeds within the limitations of its format, but it's still within the limitations of the format. So that's how I feel. So a few words about the match itself. How well did it succeed within that format? Well, the problem with the first half of the match is they actually did try to do control segments, but instead of transitioning, they were just trading spots instead. So for example, when Angle took control, it didn't feel like he fought his way there. It felt like it was just his turn. So that's never what you want to see. But I will give credit to a few things here. The first thing is Benoit striking. Absolutely. Always is good. It's as good as it always is. And if there's more than one sequence here in the first half of this where the only interesting thing going on is Benoit striking. So I can say with confidence that Benoit was the better performer in this match. Better at filling time, better at selling. And the one good transition of the first half is because of him. He fights out of Angle's hold, he delivers a brutal clothesline, and they're both down. It's pretty much marks that moment where they're switching to doing just back and forth, but it's another good Benoit strike, and he's selling what Angle's done up to there. So credit to that, yes. And the second half of this match, 100% back and forth. How did they do? Well, the obvious limitation here right off the bat is that it pretty much kills excitement for the guy's signature moves, whether it's Benoit's headbutt or Angle's running belly to back suplex off the top turnbuckle thing. It's just harder for them to feel important when they're not being used to either switch control or help a guy get control. It's just not as good. But there were some good non-signature spots that are good for no other reason other than shock value, or the fact that they just look cool. Again, there's only so much credit that I'm going to give to those if they don't get built to or don't lead to anything, but I can still enjoy them for what they are. Fighting over the German suplexes, for example, that was fun. Crossface into angle slam, that was fun. Benoit countering the German suplex into a roll up, that had me going for a few seconds, that one did. And Benoit's overhead German, that's an example of a well built up spot. You know, they had used the Germans multiple times up to that point, so it felt worthwhile and exciting when Benoit took it to that next level in a way. You know, did it lead to anything? It's kind of hard to say. Amongst all this back and forth, it's kind of hard to identify. I can't really feel any sense that Benoit was gaining on angle because of the format, but it was probably still the best spot of the match, so still gets some credit. And the ending I thought was a lot of fun. You know, you could even see that little bit of extra effort in that. You know, Benoit was not merely trying to escape the ankle lock, as so many of Angle's opponents settle for. He was actually trying to counter it into a crossface, and he failed. He loses soon after. Looks good in defeat. No complaints. You know, good finish. So in terms of rating it, I'm going to go with 3 3/4. I think that's fair. I think with the format that they had, I think they got quite a bit out of it. But still, I really doubt this would get anywhere on a top 25 or maybe even further on a WWE list for the decade. And I would also really struggle in a worldwide 2003 vote against the stuff that was happening in Japan that year. But I definitely enjoyed it nonetheless. So there is that. Not a lot to say about it, not as much to say about it as other matches that I've looked at so far. What's next? I'm not sure. Again, comment, let me know what matches would be most interesting to you. I'm sure eventually I'll also want to identify WWE matches that might get underrated or not talked about as much, but I don't have any clear targets at the moment. So any suggestions have a very good chance of being considered and taken on board. That is all. Goodbye.